In this video, we're going to take a look at the conditional formatting feature in Excel. This can be very useful when we're looking to improve our data visualization skills, increasing our efficiency by not needing to manually search through records. It can enhance our clarity and communication of our data and reporting, and can be very useful for error checking. If certain values exceed thresholds, we can make conditional formatting to flag records that should alert our attention. And for this example, we have two different data sets. So some example sales data by month and some task names for a project management. And we'll go through these examples and look at some different ways in which we can apply conditional formatting. Now, to access conditional formatting, we'll want to make sure that we're in our Home tab. And over in the ribbon here, we can see conditional formatting. And here, as we click into it, we can see we're presented with different options. So let's start with the highlight cell rules. And if we hover over this, it opens up additional menu option of some ways that we can start to apply conditional formatting. So first, let's go into our data set. And let's say we want to apply conditional formatting to the sales this month column. So let's first highlight the data that we're interested in applying the conditional formatting to. So let's click into conditional formatting, highlight cell rules. Let's say we want to highlight when sales this month are greater than 100. So let's click in greater than. And here we can see that it has 100 entered in there. And that's starting to highlight those cells that meet that criteria. Now let's say in this case, that was actually a good thing. So let's change this to green by hitting the little drop down. And here we can see a few pre-selected options that Excel provides, as well as custom formatting, which we'll take a look at later in this video. So let's go to green for cells that are greater than 100, and we'll hit OK. And let's say since we have this data already selected, let's go back to conditional formatting, and we want to highlight records that are less than 50. Let's enter 50 there, and let's say we do want that as red, we can hit OK. And we can also look at in-between values, so let's go to between, in this case, let's go between 50 and 100. And let's highlight those as yellow and hit OK. And there we can see we get a visual representation of our data of what are the highest sellers, the lowest sellers, and those in the middle. Now we can also do highlight cells that are equal to certain criteria. So we could, once again, if we wanted to highlight cells that were equal to a specific number, or if we were looking for certain prices, and let's highlight those that are equal to, let's say $24.99. We could highlight that, go to conditional formatting, equal to, and let's do $24.99. And here we can see that those records are now highlighted. Let's hit OK for that. And conditional formatting can also work with text and dates. So for example, if we wanted to look at text, we could go to our item name column, and let's say we wanted to bold all the item names that contain the text black. So let's highlight that data, go to conditional formatting, text that contains, and let's change this to black. And let's introduce some custom formatting. And let's say we want to bold those. So within this, we can see a few different options. So under the font option, let's click bold, hit OK. And there we can see that those item names with black are now bolded. We can also do this with dates. So let's jump over to our project management data set, and let's highlight these dates and go into conditional formatting. And here we can see that there's a few options which Excel can help us out with. So if we wanted to highlight records that are this month, we could click that from the drop-down menu, and let's change that to green. And for projects with a due date next month, let's highlight those as yellow to alert us that those are upcoming. You could click that for next month and change to yellow. And that way we can get a visual representation of projects upcoming for this month as well as next month. And one last option within the highlight cell rules is duplicate values. And if we're looking at this data set here, we can see that there are some duplicate task names down below. And so let's see, if we were to highlight this entire array and apply duplicate values, what happens? So here we can see that there's a lot of records that are highlighted as red. And we might have been thinking, shouldn't this have just flagged the different task names? But one thing to note with how this works is that it will look for any other cell within the data array that it finds a match with. So in this case, there's 2 7s over here, multiple not started statuses. Now, if we're interested in just finding a duplicate within a certain column or row, we'd want to make sure that we're intentional about selecting that column and then going to conditional formatting and then looking for duplicate values. And that way we can see within this column what tasks do we have that are duplicate. So something to be aware of if you are highlighting multiple columns or rows, that it will look for any other matches, even cross column or cross row. Now, if we ever want to start deleting rules that we've started to implement or clear them out, we can either highlight selected cells to clear the rule or reset our entire sheet. So let's go back to our original sheet by clearing the rules from everything. And let's go back to our sales this month and look at the next options under conditional formatting. And this is some top and bottom rules. And for this, let's highlight our sales this month data. And if we're interested in our top 10 items and want to highlight those as green, Excel can easily do that for us. And if we wanted to adjust how many items that it was looking for just to the top 5, we could also do that within here. And the same thing for the bottom items. We could do the bottom 5 and have those highlighted as red. And this could serve as a very helpful, easy visualization of top and bottom sellers. And the same thing could apply to top 10% or top bottom percent. So let's clear those rules just so we don't have any overlapping highlighting. And we'll go through top 10% are green. And once again, it can adjust the percent that we're interested in. And bottom 10% highlighted as red. Now we can also look for records or apply conditional formatting to anything that's above or below the average. So let's clear these. And within our average data set, so we can see down below here that our average is 68.9. So with this conditional formatting, it will take the sum of all these records, divide by the count, get the average, and then we can apply highlighting to those that are above that 68.9 average. So Excel will automatically do that calculation for us, and then we can apply the formatting that we're interested in. Now we can do some additional conditional formatting options such as data bars and color scales. And we'll take a look at color scales first. This is pretty similar to some of the examples we previously looked at. So if we go into color scales, we can see that if we start to hover over these different options, it will highlight based on different criteria, which we can also adjust. So in this case, we can see that our highest values are highlighted in green, lowest in red. If we wanted to reverse that, where high values were bad, we could have that flipped as the highest values being red. And there's a few different formatting options that we could also play with and see what makes sense for our data. So let's say we wanted to just have a high to low, green being the highest, red the lowest. We could apply that to our data set. Now, if we're curious what criteria it was using to highlight those, we could go into conditional formatting, and this is where we can jump into manage rules. And here we can see what the rule is that's being applied and where it's being applied to. And if we were to click on that and edit the rule, we can then see what the color thresholds are for highlighting. So in this case, the midpoint it's saying is 50, and anything above that starts to be highlighted in a increasingly brighter green, anything below that increasing color of red. And if we wanted to change that, we could change some formatting style with the color scale. We could play around with different numbers that we want it to highlight based on. So you can customize this as you see fit. Now, if we wanted to look at data bars, this is a really interesting visualization. And let's say we want to get a sense of our stock levels. We can use the data bars to provide a good visual representation. So under conditional formatting, we'll go into data bars and we can hover over and see that we can, once again, play around with the different color scheme. We'll stick with blue to keep this simple. And let's go with the solid fill blue. And here we can see that it starts to visually give us a representation of our stock level. So we can see those with higher stock will have the bigger blue bars, and those with lower will have lower. But what if we wanted to clean this up a little bit and not see the numbers? One thing we could apply to our formatting is some custom formatting into this column, which we could go into formatting and go to more number formats, custom. And if we enter 3 semicolons, that will remove any data from being visible. So we can hit OK. And there we can just see a visual representation of our stock level. Now, there's a few other options we have. We can get into different icon sets. So let's say we, once again, highlighted our sales this month. We could add some example icon sets. And once again, we could choose criteria for what we wanted the icons to just show up as. So if certain sales were good, okay, or bad, we could have those correlate to the different colors or different trends that we're seeing. So a few different options of icons to play around with for what makes sense with your data. And the last thing that is important to know with conditional formatting is that it can also be used with formulas. So if we go into managing rules, we can create new rules and we can use a formula to determine which cells to format. And let's use an example where if we were to mark in this column G that a item was discontinued, that we want this entire row to highlight gray and have a strike through for the items to denote that this is no longer relevant for this report. So how could we do that? So for this data, let's click into this little icon, which will start referencing where we want that formatting rule to apply to. So let's say we want when this cell is equal to yes. So when we type in the word yes into that cell, and we want to make sure that we update the reference array so that the column can come down and it's not locked to just this one specific cell. So we'll remove the $sign there and we'll hit enter. And then let's go into formatting. And let's say we want to apply a strike through and we want to fill the cell with gray. We can hit OK. And we'll hit OK there. And for this, we want this to apply to our data array of our entire data. So let's make sure we select that and hit enter. And we can hit apply and then OK. Now, when we type in yes into this column, we should get this row to highlight in gray with a strike through. So let's see if that worked out. So here we can see that now our data will dynamically adjust if we do have discontinued products. So let's say that there are some low sellers that we wanted to discontinue. We could hit yes next to them. And now our data is going to update with that conditional formatting, striking that row and visually highlighting it gray to let us know that it's no longer relevant. Now, another use case we could use formulas for are with our project tracker over here. And let's say that we wanted every time we flipped a status to complete for that to highlight green. So we could go back into our conditional formatting, managing rules, and we can create a new rule, which will be based on a formula. And we'll click into our little icon. In this case, we'll click on this first status column. And once again, make sure that we update this reference array, so it's not locked to just that first cell. And when that is equal to completed, this is what we're looking for our formula. We can hit enter. And when that is true, let's add our formatting of, let's pick this screen here. We can hit OK. We'll hit OK. And let's apply that. And there we can see that when this is now completed, it is green. Let's say if we want to do that for a few other statuses, such as in progress or pending, we could also apply that. We could add another rule by clicking New Rule, use a formula, and we can do the same thing. We can start in this cell, updating that reference, and when that is equal to, let's say, not started, hit enter. In that case, we can format that in a light gray, hit OK, OK. And let's look at if we switch this to not started, you can see that's gray. And we could carry this conditional formatting down to the rest of our data set. So as we're starting to go through and flip these to different statuses, we can see that it will then highlight in the color that we wish. So once again, to be a better visual representation of statuses changing and highlighting. So that's a helpful walkthrough of conditional formatting, some various use cases, going through the different options, how to look at high performers, low performers, to add some data bars to help with the visualization, make some dynamic conditional formatting based on formulas, how that can apply to text, numbers, dates. So once again, a very helpful feature to understand that can, across the board, improve data visualization, increase your efficiency, enhance clarity in data visualization in which you're communicating with, and also help with adding in any error checking or validation we want to occur within our spreadsheets.